It's Believe in Vikings Wednesday night. By the time folks listen to it, perhaps Thursday or so. Well, the Vikings own the 7th seed in the postseason right now. They're at a half game out of the 5th seed, 1.5 games behind the Lions in the NFC North. And we are going to get into all of this, primarily to start with Josh Dobbs, who became a folkloric legend. If he never played a game for the Vikings, he would probably still have his legacy cemented because of the circumstances surrounding his arrival. So I got to start with you, Bryant. I need your perspective on this. This man was traded to the Vikings on Halloween. He had 4 days to study the playbook, didn't expect to play because the Vikings had a QB1 named Jaron Hall. And then Josh Dobbs was thrust into action almost immediately in the game. He had his head coach walking him through plays until the microphone would shut off in his helmet at 15 seconds. So I want to know from you, can you imagine a quarterback having to be told plays on the fly by his coach 4 days with the team? Was this narrative overblown by fans in the media, or is this pretty wild?
No, I mean, that was probably a lot on his plate because you have to, know the plays and then kind of get a feel and a rhythm for the wide receiver, especially in the throwing the ball and knowing where they are, the routes and everything too. So, I mean, I feel like for him, it's a lot. For an offensive lineman, especially me, it's only but so many people you can block. Most likely it's going to be the end. But for him, it's like you have to, scan the whole field. And then that's why always say like training camps and mini camps are for the rhythm with the quarterback and things like that. But he was able to kind of jump right in and just get in sync.
Now, how much, along with that, we saw the video of him with the offensive line on the sidelines, and none of them had ever heard his cadence before. Bradbury, our center, had never, had a snap taken by him before. So as an offensive lineman, when you go off of, so especially on the road, when you're trying to, I don't know if you're trying to peek in or what the advantage is, but how much of that cadence is a real thing as far as
on the road,
understanding what it is?
Most likely on the road, they were on like a silent count. Just because it was a close game. So that will probably affect them more when they get at home. But they have all week now to hear the cadence and get used to his rhythm. But by them being on the road, I think it was a high chance, because it was a close game the whole time, it was a high chance that it was a silent counts. So it's really about him just being prepared for the center's rhythm, the head bobs and things like that.
Katie, we were chilling on this show, about 5 weeks ago tonight or so with the Vikings at 1-4. Justin Jefferson was headed out for 4 games. It appears it's going to be 5. And then not long after, Kirk Cousins ruptured his Achilles, gone for the season. But lo and behold, they started winning after all that shit happens. And now we find ourselves looking at the injury report saying no Justin Jefferson, no Kirk Cousins, no KJ Osborne, maybe no Darisaw. Yeah, we're probably still going to beat the Saints. It's unbelievable how we look at this now after 4 wins. I want to know, I'm guessing you were somewhat downtrodden at 0-3 or 1-4. Has this last month and Josh Dobbs completely rejuvenated how you feel about this season?
It's been so up and down. Like the start of the season it was just melancholy. It's like, oh, it's going to be one of those seasons again where we're just going to have to trudge through and hope for good draft. I wasn't overly excited after the Panthers win, but I think probably everybody, and even the Bears, right? It's like, if we can't beat the Bears, we should, but when we beat the 49ers, it really felt like everything was starting to turn around. Mm-hmm. Just to have our heart broken the next week with Kirk Cousins going down. So it's just like, this team knows how to, like, I think the highs are so high because it makes sure you have those really low moments. Mm-hmm. But then after this last week, it feels reminiscent of, the Case Keenum season where it's like everything goes wrong, but we still find a way. And that season was so fun. So I'm even more, I don't know if I'm more excited, but yeah, totally rejuvenated with it and excited to keep going on it.
When they were 1-4 and we kind of talked out loud about how this could be a good football team if they stop with the damn fumbles and turning the ball over in the first drive or first quarter. I spoke to a lot of my colleagues and it's going to be one of those seasons like 2020 where we're just chasing 500. And then if they do that, we'll see if they can maybe get frisky and go 8-9. And now I agree with you. It feels like more of a 2017 wavelength, and I just didn't know that was possible. And it's a lesson learned. Bryant talks about this a lot on the show. Remember how rotten we felt about that victory over the Bears because it was just a survive and advance? Brian often says, like, it really doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get the win. You know, that can spark a win streak, and I'll be damned if that didn't happen. So let it be known, if you have to go to Soldier Field, by any means necessary, when these Vikings go there, just win. Who cares what happens? Because that is what started this thing. And here we are, you know, looking at a possible 5-game win streak for these against the Saints. Ron, with you, sir. You're usually more optimistic than most. I don't think that you had completely given up on the season after that Chiefs game. But are you buying into the, man, this could be one of those special 2017 seasons, or is that like a homer thing?
I mean, I think obviously with that season that we had, like we all have that feeling, like, and all Vikings fans know that there's at some point the rug will get pulled out from under us, like just because that's all we know. So but we're happy to ride this ride. So for me, even last week when I was talking about that, the loss of Kirk Cousins is massive because there's no quarterback that you're going to get to replace him that's at that level. Now, what you can do is find other aspects that are working. Our defense has been playing lights out, you know, except for that last drive against Atlanta. Pretty much everything except our run game has been like pretty damn flawless. Now, again, I still think that O'Connell has some deficiencies when it comes to play calling. I mean, every single first down we ran for negative yards, and then we can't get it there. Well, why not do it again on second down? So every single time Josh Dobbs came in, it was a 3rd and long, which is just ridiculous. Do your guys some favors, which they did in the second half. I understand the playbook was probably very limited, but the running game was not working. If you're going to do that, just spike the ball into the ground every goddamn first down. Like that's exactly what we were doing. And it's frustrating. So second half, they got some positive yards on first down. Like, you know, even if it's 2nd and 8, now you make it 3rd and 6, made it a hell of a lot easier because, you know, have a guy that has the athleticism, clearly has the wherewithal to get there. So we're doing it in different ways. And in a lot of ways, it does feel similar to Case Keenum and kind of like riding that high. I'm not going to go that far because I feel like there was a lot more talent on that team, mainly on the defensive side. But if you remember how the season kind of went, even into the Saints game and then Philly, defense kind of struggled there. The offense was carrying them, whereas we're getting healthy on offense. You know, Darisaw is bound to come back. Best receiver in football is bound to come back. You know, yes, we keep losing people, but you know, why can't we be excited about this? Even, you know, just being 5-4 from where we were at the start of the season, just giving games away, like literally. So all Vikings fans should hop on board. So, you know, at least let's ride it together.
And one thing, a disclaimer I will give, no matter how exciting the season gets, is the 2017 season. That defense was significantly better. We can get happy about how this Flores defense is progressing, and maybe it'll get to that Zimmerish standard. But that 2017 defense was downright deadly. And right now, we're just starting to sniff that with this personnel and this coach. And it just feels a lot better because it's no longer shitty like it was last year for most of the Ed Donatel games. In the fourth quarter, they weirdly get good. But Bryant, so with Justin Jefferson, he's out 4 games, probably going to miss one more. Kirk Cousins went out. Darisaw didn't play last week. Marcus Davenport, starting edge rusher, has been gone for 3 games. Is it more of a testament to the depth on the roster or the coaching staff to make the Enterprise still win games without some of these players, or is it just both?
I'm going to say a combination of both. And I'm going to say, remember when I always tell you that guys have to step up and kind of seize the opportunity when they're given? Yeah, I feel like a lot of guys are doing that because I say it's very important, especially if you're a backup player and somebody goes down and you step right in and able to kind of fill that void and make the team seem like it's not missing that person as bad as, you know, we all would have thought. That's a testament to them. But then that also gives them game film because maybe later on somebody may try to, you know, get them next year or something, you know?
Yeah, I'll tell you guys, it's downright weird how we went from the first 5 games of the season. Anytime there was a single injury, we'd be like, oh, God, Marcus Davenport's out again. How are we going to do this? The other guys suck. And now we're at a point where we don't even remember that he's on the team because he's been on IR. And it's like if Darisaw doesn't play, it's like, cool, we got David Quesenberry. He was wonderful against the Falcons. So it's so strange how in a month's time we've viewed this through a lens of, wow, they're actually a pretty deep roster that's performing. The coaching staff is wonderful. And so always have patience when you're watching professional sports, because things can turn around. I'll be damned if they haven't. Now, next, Katie, here's what I want to ask you. Jaren Hall got his first career start. Bittersweet. His first drive, the team didn't do much. Second drive, he looked like a baller. Got down close in a red zone situation, then was concussed. And I don't know when he will be back. I think it would probably take a bad Dobbs game in the next 2 or 3 weeks for them to shift back to Jaren Hall. But my question is, do you think that by some measure, by an injury or benching Dobbs, do you think we see Hall again this season?
I think it would have to be a couple really terrible games from Dobbs and have him be benched, or an injury. Otherwise, I think we stick with what works. And again, not to keep drawing comparisons to the Case Keenum season, but remember where that was like, who's going to start next week once they start, our quarterbacks started getting healthy again?
We did that the whole season.
Yeah, the whole season.
Zimmer would never come in.
Yeah, he wouldn't name it. It's like he plays if he plays. But I really do. If it isn't broke, then don't fix it. And if Dobbs can continue to deliver, then I think that's what we continue with, which is almost, if there's the opposite of a silver lining. So if there is a downside to this, is I was excited to see what we were going to get out of Hall. But I'm not going to complain as long as we're winning. So
Ron, I'm going to venture to guess that you were impressed with the one Jaren Hall drive. There's some folks that are adamant that no matter what, when he's out of the protocol, he should be the starter because this is a golden opportunity to see what he's got in a Cousins-less season. What do you think? Do you think we see Hall again, or should we see Hall again?
Well, I think Katie nailed it. You'll see him again if we can get, hopefully, a blowout win. But if it's a blowout or something, a blowout loss, I think he'll get some time as well. But I mean, realistically, I see all the games being close. I think that's why you bring in Josh Dobbs, is you're not punting on this season. You're keeping things interesting. And, again, with O'Connell, the one thing we know for certain, that locker room rallies behind him. Every single player, whether it's, Quessenberry being ready, and replacing an elite left tackle and playing extremely well, or like all the guys in the locker room that continue to get their numbers called and produce when it matters, and culminating with Josh Dobbs coming in and just everyone rallying behind him, just making plays, again in the Keenum-like fashion, just out of nowhere surprise. But when you bring him in, you expect to compete. When the defense is playing at the level they're playing at, you expect to be in games. So now it's unfortunate what happened to Hall, because I think he was showing some flashes, but man, you can't go away from Dobbs just because Hall gets healthy. Nothing against him, but I don't think he has that equity. It's not a Teddy Bridgewater situation. It's not someone that's established. You're going to roll with the hot hand, and then if things go south, then you look to see what you have in Hall.
And you would think, with the man, a rocket scientist with no exaggeration there, who interned at NASA, you would think if he looked that good with 4 days of patchwork preparation, not knowing the names of his teammates, you would think in the next coming weeks, as he learns more and more, that he should get even better. I don't think it would be just this weird outlier that the unprepared guy did well on the road. So I'm excited. I think it's a good mix. You have the ultimate studier in Kirk Cousins, who said today that he'll help Josh no matter what he wants. So if you have a guy who knows the playbook inside and out, you have a quarterback coach and a whisperer, and then you have a rocket scientist as quarterback, you should have all of these elements that coagulate to say, this Dobbs guy is here to succeed. Now, the only thing he has to suppress is his fumbles. That, I believe, is his cardinal sin, and I believe that is why he's cast away by so many average teams in the last 2 years. The Browns said no thanks. The Lions, I guess, are better than average. They said no thanks. Cardinals said we don't need you anymore. I guess we're going to Kyler. So a lot of
I think the Cardinals was more so he was doing too well. Like he kept them in games. Like they clearly don't want to win at all. So yeah. I think that, but not to mention with Dobbs, he did all that without the two best players on offense, like the guy protecting his blind side, and Bryant, you know how valuable those are, and then Justin Jefferson. So you instantly now add one of the top left tackles and arguably the best receiver in football. It's only going to get better from there because now those guys he was throwing to, whose names he didn't know, the Tristan Jackson and I know there's a lot of N'Keal Harry that you saw, the name at least, I don't know, on the field, but now you're replacing that with Jefferson and everyone else shifts down one. Obviously, KJ Osborne looks like he's okay, so now he's back to the second, third guy rather than first, second. So I mean, everything's looking better from that standpoint.
Bryant, it seems that Dobbs won the hearts of the locker room, his teammates, because of, that heroic performance, unpreparedness be damned. Would you, if you were in a locker room like that, where this guy waltzed onto the field, hardly knowing the playbook, led them to a game-winning drive on the road, would it be really weird if they said, we don't need you next week, we're going back to our rookie quarterback? Or would players just be like, oh, all right, well, whatever?
It would be weird because I think players feel like he came in with only 4 days and he was able to lead us to a victory where a lot of people were probably unsure of how things were going to go, without the starting quarterback. So it would probably seem weird that he just had a big win on the road and then all of a sudden we're going to go back to the quarterback.
That's what I've been trying to wrap my head around, the camp or the faction of fans that says, well, when Hall's back, we need to go back to him. Like, I get it. Like, if you're playing a video game and you got to see if the guy's going to progress in a lost season without Kirk Cousins. But I almost feel like there'd be a borderline mutiny if they just said, well, we're not going to use the guy who won the game, like, with 4 days of preparation. Like, it'd almost be a slap in the face to him personally. And then the locker
I almost
room.
feel like he earned it, though. I feel like he earned the position, So it's like now at this point, it's just his to lose.
Yeah. Even if pounding home that 2017 talker again, even if they would have benched Case Keenum when the Vikings were like 9-2 and like arbitrarily went back to Bridgewater, I think we love Teddy enough that we'd be like, okay, let's see how this goes. But there wouldn't be a universal like, we'd be like, what are you doing? You're screwing up a good thing. So with the Saints are on tap. The Vikings haven't played a meaningful home game without Kirk Cousins since the Minneapolis Miracle game, and that was Case Keenum, and it was against the Saints, and that's who's coming to town in a mere, 3.5 days or so. So, Katie, I'm going to ask you, the Vikings, they're 2.5-point underdogs. How do you feel about this weekend? The injury report is thick. We think Jefferson probably won't play. What are you thinking about this game heading into it?
Nervous for it, like I am with every Viking game. I still think the Saints owe us some karma, so I'm hoping we will pull out an awesome win. The Saints aren't terrible this year, but we keep finding ways to win, and so and I think that's a testament to our coaching with being able to adjust and keep calm. So I feel optimistic, but not like we got this in the bag.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before we start to do that got this in the bag stuff, I think we need Jefferson back. We need maybe two more games of Dobbs playing like a baller and, moving the sticks before we'd have that feeling from 5 years ago when it's like, yeah, we're probably going to win this thing. Right now, it feels like just kind of riding the wave to hope it's for real. Ron, your thoughts? Do you think the Vikings have a win afoot, or are they going to take a temporary step back to 5-5?
I mean, not to sound like a homer, but this would have been the case either way. I don't think the Saints are any good. They've been feasting in a bad division and beating. Yeah, like their biggest win was against New England back when New England went how many quarters without scoring a touchdown, and they're just not a good football team, in my opinion. I think they have some pieces on offense, but I don't think they're well coached, to be honest. Like, I think Dennis Allen, he's just one of those guys where how does he keep getting these jobs? Like, it's like Josh McDaniels, like, who just was fired last week. It's why are they recycling guys who have never done anything? Like, it's not like you're recycling a Mike Zimmer who had some success or something like that. It's these guys who really have had a shitty track record. Like, are they doing it because that's how Belichick, he sucked in Cleveland and they found him Tom Brady and he did just fine. But anyway, like Derek Carr is and always has been, not just a tier, but 2 tiers below Kirk Cousins. Now he seems to have that Aaron Rodgers a-hole in him, where his receivers are getting yelled at when he's throwing the ball 8 yards out of the sidelines. Like, I don't understand, his what he's doing, and then the usage of Taysom Hill. Like, sure, it looks great in fantasy football world, but the dude is not a good football player. Like, he.
I just picked him up, so
great fantasy world. Yeah, he could do it all, but he had a wide open Jawan Johnson, which great, he found him. But anytime he ever tries to push the ball downfield, like, it's not any good. Like, he's a weapon for sure, but they use him so much because they're paying him so much damn money. But anytime he's in the backfield, like, sure, let him, like, make him throw it and you'll be fine. So they don't worry me much because, again, that schedule, like, it took the Bears had 5 turnovers or something on Sunday, and they could only beat them by a touchdown, and that was with Tyler Bagent at quarterback. So again, it's one of those where I'm saying this now and we get our asses kicked to us because that's just the way it'll happen. But I'm looking at it, Vikings are plus 125 right now, and it's taking every bit of me to not just hammer that line because, one, I think it's going to move once Darrisaw's announced that he's coming back, or even if he doesn't. But I think the big upper hand we have is, again, Dobbs with a week of practice, but also an underrated aspect. We're playing the same team we played last week. The defensive coordinator for Atlanta was on the New Orleans staff last year, so they run the same exact defense. And yes, Marcus Lattimore's a stud, and they have some good players in their secondary, and Cam Jordan always seems to feast against us because, his dad, all those years he played for the Vikings. But I just I don't see it because I see a big gap in talent on both sides of the ball for us. And that's with, our, fourth quarterback, essentially, from when the year started.
Katie, I wouldn't be anxiety about Taysom Hill on your fantasy team because he usually does damage against the Vikings. If you'll recall in that 2019 playoff game, Kirk Cousins' magnum opus, that was the only offense they could get going, was just gadget garbage shit with that guy. That was the only thing they could do, and it worked for them. So I expect him to do that again, just because he's not a Viking killer. He's just an irritant. So yeah, don't have any reservations about putting him in the lineup. Bryant, how do you feel about Vikings Saints in Minneapolis Sunday? You feeling optimistic?
I am. Like Ron said, I don't feel like they're the same team as they've been in the past. Vikings are back home, new quarterback, just kind of like almost a fresh start, So I'm looking for them to be a little successful this weekend.
You picking them to win?
Yeah.
Yeah. By what? 3, 4, 5, 6, or more than that?
I can see them winning by like a touchdown.
We'll take it. Yeah, I am paranoid. Well, I know that the Broncos are going to get beat this weekend against the Bills because the Bills are in desperation mode, and the Broncos aren't that good, but they're also not devoid of talent. And Vikings road games historically against AFC West teams don't go peachy. So I'm a little nervous about dropping the game next week, the Broncos, no matter what happens this week. So it'd be nice to have a little 6-4 buffer. All right. The final question I have for Katie and Ron is kind of a weird one because of all of the hopscotch that we've played with the injury report this season, and then the roller coaster in general from 1-4 to 5-4. Katie, who is the Vikings midseason MVP?
I'm going to go with Danielle Hunter. I don't know if he's still leading in sacks. I didn't check that stat after this last game, and I don't know if he had any, but I know there was questions last season because his numbers weren't as big, but he has just been amazing, and our whole defense has really. But that's who I'm going with because I think he's been just impactful throughout the first half here.
We'll see if Ron makes it a trifecta because that would be mine. If Cousins was still in and led them to the win over the Falcons without Jefferson 4 games, it would probably be Cousins' award. But when he left, they were only 4-4. So I'm looking for something a little bit more consistent for if there was a real MVP for the Vikings midseason. Danielle Hunter is the consistency guy. Otherwise, if you wanted to give it to a coach, Brian Flores could certainly have his name in the hat. Ron, is it Hunter for you or somebody else?
For me, it's not Hunter because
No?
you expect that out of him. Like he's doing what he has shown his entire career. So for me, I have it take 1A, 1B, whatever it is, but it's Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus for me. Like you haven't seen them make him, at least I haven't. I haven't seen them make a mistake except for maybe Bynum on the 3rd and 17 against Mahomes where he just jumped a little early. But those two guys are always around the ball. They're always making plays. And like I said, they're not on the bad end of plays. And most importantly, whenever there's a takeaway, they're the guys at the bottom of the pile, or they're the ones who are coming up with it. So again, it's more of you don't expect them. Chalk that up to Brian Flores and being able to coach them up. But these are guys that on the back end, and Metellus especially being able to play in that hybrid role as a passing down linebacker. I just think what those two guys have done again has been you can't really speak to it because it's again unexpected. Metellus in a way, not the hard hitting side, but he reminds me of the way Robert Griffith played. Like just always around the football, like always like not making mistakes, not giving up big plays. But they're obviously doing their job, which is keeping Lewis Cine inactive. So, which again, as much as a lot of people want to pile on Cine, I think it's because of the play of those two guys that has kept Cine, on the sidelines.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Bynum's been getting I've been so impressed with his intelligence as he's playing, where you can tell he's watching what Harrison Smith is doing too, where he's learning how to bait quarterbacks into throws and all of that. And it's so impressive to see. I'm with you on that. I like both of those two.
He's so instinctual, which is like something that, again, in his first couple of years when he was rotational player, something clicked in him, even going into last year where he was all of a sudden like always around the ball and he doesn't miss tackles. And he's just a very heady football player, which is what we've needed alongside Harrison Smith for years. You no longer have the misfire missile, just taking people's heads off, including his own players. You have a guy that's playing smart, heady football.
And then that Metellus fumble recovery, I went back and watched the highlights again this week, and I still can't believe he came up with
I have no idea how he got it.
No, I mean, even in the moment after Evans stripped it, I think I was watching with my uncle. I said, "Oh, here comes one of those fumbles that we're not going to get because we don't get them this season." And then the Vikings defenders started pointing, saying, "Oh, that's ours." And I was like, "Oh, they have to be just doing that for vibes because there's no way he could get in there." And yeah, it must be one of those scrums that's just forbidden to even talk about because who knows how he came up with that. Bryant, the last thing, I think we touched on this last week, but I want to revisit your perspective and then we'll sign off for the night. Justin Jefferson went down in week 5, and then the Vikings have rattled off 4 wins. In 2005, you guys lost Dante Culpepper, and then you went on a win streak right after he went down. It was the Love Boat season. Tell us again, to revisit that season from 18 years ago, do you remember how on earth the wins started happening when the QB1 went down?
We had a boat party, and we were getting a lot of scrutiny behind it, so we had no choice but to stick together and focus on winning games.
You're saying we should call up Alan Almas now to get the guys out there.
We're doing 5 right now. We were 1 and whatever, maybe 2 games or maybe 1 game at a time. Mm-hmm. And it brought camaraderie, and it just was us against the world at that point. So that's kind of played a big part.
You gotta ask.
We know what to do if our streak ends.
The week after, because it was the game that Dante got hurt in against Carolina.
Right,
Steve Smith. But it was the first game that we played after that incident, and Steve Smith scored a touchdown, and he's rowing in the end zone. Was that a shot at the team? I don't know if you remember that.
There was a lot of shots at the team. There were people having cardboard signs in the stands.
Oh yeah, the fans and stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot. So at that point, it definitely was us against everybody else because every time we traveled somewhere, there were signs or something referencing that. So. You was okay, let's go out here and try, let's go out here and win at this point, to shut these people up.
The best part of this story now about Love Boat being the inspiration was for about 3 years, I've always thought it was a joke when he says that, but I don't think he's kidding at all.
It really brought the team together. Because you look at it, it did. It was to form camaraderie at the end of the day, but it rarely worked because now it was like a light on all of us, and we're like, oh my gosh, and it's like nobody else to turn to but each other. So now you are now forced to have each other's back and like just go out and win games.
Well, the
Probably
proof
didn't
is,
want to be. We didn't want to resort to that, but I mean, it kind of did serve a purpose.
yeah, it was October. Excuse me, October 30th, 2005. Dante Culpepper went down with the torn ACL and MCL. The Love Boat had come to light a couple weeks was it during the bye week that had happened? And then it was all coming to light about that time. And then, yes, on December 11th, after a 2-5 start, McKinnie's Vikings were 8-5. So, we can say like, I don't know if that Love Boat really did the trick, but the proof is there. There's no other way around it. The win streak did occur. Well, Katie, thank you for joining us, filling in, subbing for Sally, who's at the Timberwolves right now. As always, you let us know when you'd like to join because we've always got room for you. You have any closing arguments, Katie?
No, just thanks for having me, and I hope the rest of the season is as entertaining as the last few weeks have been.
Oh, I hear you. All right, guys, we'll talk to you 1 week, heading into Bronco week, okay?
Okay.
And
all right.
Shout out to Sally at the Wolves game because the Wolves are just kicking some ass right now. So,
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, guys, later.
All right.